menneske. Så det blir kjekt. Men vi må faktisk gjøre en liten omrokering på programmet. Fordi at vi har en hel haug med mennesker som har lyst til å demonstrere på utsiden. Og de mennesker som gjerne da har litt problemer med å stå tidlig opp på morgenen. Så vi tar rett og slett og bytter om og begynner med vår mest kontroversielle taler, nemlig Martin Sellner. Så jeg tar og kommer inn litt senere. Så da begynner vi rett og slett med Martin Sellner. Og så får vi liksom den biten overgjort, og så kan vi slappe av etterpå. It's very nice to have you here. So I will just put your slides up and then you can start.
Thank you. I didn't understand a word of his introduction of me, but I hope it was friendly. I suppose it's friendly, so I say thank you, Una, for having me. Thank you all for coming. And especially thanks to the owner of this bookstore, a brave guy, who is not afraid to host somebody with a different and even controversial opinion. And I hope for a very interesting debate after my talk. And if you have any question or you hear something that you don't like or you don't agree with, just keep it in mind, and I will be very happy to answer all of your questions afterwards.
Try to talk into the phone.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. If it's too fast and or not loud enough, you can interrupt me at any time. Well, it's the first time that I've been here to Norway, to your beautiful country. And I'm very glad and honored to speak here. But before I start with my presentation of Generation Identity, the movement I'm representing here, I want to ask you a question. I want to make a small experiment in the audience. And I want to ask you to be honest when you raise your hands. And it's about the following situation. I want to know to whom of you the situation seems familiar in a way. And that's, say you're coming home from work, you want to grab a beer with your colleagues at work, and or you're meeting the parents of your girlfriend for the first time, or you go to school for an event for your children, and you meet the other parents there. And the debate shifts to politics. And in this very moment, you have to decide. Either you say what the media wants you to say, what you've learned in the talk shows and read in mainstream media, or you speak your mind. But this comes with a price. Whom of you has ever had this feeling that he will face social consequences when he has to speak his mind? Please raise your hand. I also raise my hand. That's why I'm here, and that's why I think Norway needs a generation identity. Because you're the fourth richest country in the world, and still you're not free to utter your opinion on important matters like immigration, like Islamization, like demographics. You live like in a golden cage. You're free to rent a nice house at a fjord. You're free to choose between Burger King and McDonald's, but you're not really free to speak your mind. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has to change. Multiculturalism is that. How do I move on?
Just
okay. Yeah. So I just give you a sign. Okay. Perfect. I prefer giving signs than having the hand.
all right.
Multiculturalism is that. It died 23 times in the city of Manchester. It was rolled over in Berlin and Stockholm. It was shot in Paris, and it was stabbed in London. And these terrible events of Islamic terrorism that are happening more and more frequent in Europe are, and that's the problem I want to reveal you today, part of a bigger picture, of a bigger, even more problematic issue that we call the Great Replacement. What is the Great Replacement? It's a combination of our low and fading birth rates combined with massive non-European immigration into our countries. And this creates a demographic dynamic within assimilation or integration is by definition impossible. Because by definition it means to integrate or assimilate into a bigger group, into a majority. But when the majority is shifting, when you go to certain parts of Oslo, of Vienna, of Stockholm, of Berlin, you see there is no majority, there is no European culture that you can adapt to. And that's the thing that really is taking place here. And it's sugar-coated sugar-coated by our politicians with terms like diversity. But what they don't tell you is that diversity can get poisonous at a certain degree. Yes, poisonous. It might sound like blasphemous in the political correct ear, but the problem is that just with everything, the dose makes the poison. And scholars like Robert Putnam or people like Frank Salter have found out that at a certain degree, multi-ethnicity and ethnic diversity in a society is destroying what is the very base of our democracies and of our culture and our civilization, and that's the mutual trust. It's what Robert Putnam calls the social capital, and in his brave and groundbreaking study, E Pluribus Unum, he found out that in multi-ethnic societies, the amount of solidarity drops. The social capital breaks down. People stop carpooling. People stop with neighborhood activities. People don't believe in social chains. People are much more isolated, and instead, the amount of corruption, of crime rises. The society gets unstable, and these are the side effects of diversity that no one's talking about. Also, diversity is damaging and it's a huge problem for our democracies. And that's a subject that will be and will define the future of Europe and also of Norway. And it's alarming that nobody in this audience, or I think mostly nobody, will have heard of the word ethnic vote. Who knows what this means? Or who has read about it? Okay, I see there's a few informed guys here. What does ethnic vote mean? World Labour said in 2009 that jailed Islamist Muhammad Kreker to his fellow Muslims. And Labour, they voted. 8 out of 10 Muslims in Norway vote the Arbeiterpartei. Why do those people, who are on average very conservative, even fundamentalist, voting for a liberal, leftist, progressive party? It's a single issue vote because of massive immigration, because of open borders. And this is a pattern everywhere in Western Europe. 91% of Muslims in France voted for the President Hollande against Sarkozy in the previous election, compared to 51% of the whole French population. In Germany and Austria, a stable percentage of 70 to 90% of Turkish people have a voting tendency for socialist and green parties. And for those parties, it's great. They don't need to convince their voters anymore. They can import their voters. And they only need to do 3 things to keep those people on their side. The biggest, fastest raising voting community in Europe. They need to keep the borders open, the welfare system open, and they mustn't talk about Islamization. Instead, they must slander those who criticize Islamization and massive immigration. And where does this process lead us? This process of ethnic vote, combined with the great replacement and the damages of diversity, will destabilize our society, will create a more violent society where terrorism gets more and more frequent, and in the end, and that's my great fear, demography could kill democracy. It's not an enrichment. It's not a new chapter in our history or even transformation. In fact, it is the end of all chapters. It's the end of Europe as we know it when this process continues like it does. It will destroy our identity. Maybe you can... And we as the Identitäre movement are fighting for this identity. What do I mean by identity? Identity is the generation-spanning we. This we that you have to feel, that you cannot define with a mathematic formula. You cannot test it with any test. It's a feeling, and this generation-spanning we gives you the possibility to be proud of people like Eric the Red, Roald Amundsen, Knut Hamsun, Ibsen, Munch. It gives you the pride when you go to Vigeland Park, what I did this morning. It's beautiful. This is a generation-spanning we that is creating the basis for democracy. The solidarity, the frame, within we can withstand debates, completely different opinions, but still having a common fate, a common ground. And by destroying this generation-spanning we, this solidarity and this mutual trust, in this crazy and dangerous social experiment, our politicians, the multiculturalists and global elites, are destroying the futures for us and for our children in Europe, in this country. When integration and assimilation are failing, what is our future? Immigration without assimilation becomes an invasion. And that's the future we are facing, and that's what we are rebelling against. But what is the cause for these events? Why is there no real resistance? The cause for that is what we call ethnomasochism. It's like a syndrome, it's like a craze, where you have an auto-racism, a hatred of your own identity, of your own culture, while you're celebrating the diversity of all the other cultures. Just a few weeks ago, the Ministry of Integration in Germany, a Turkish woman of the Socialist Party, said, there is no German culture. So, Germany is multicultural, there are a lot of cultures, but those cultures that should be the rainbow umbrella culture for this rainbow nation doesn't even exist. That's crazy. It's completely crazy. You celebrate the cultural identity and the cultural awakening of the Sami people, of Palestinians, of Tibetans. And if you fight for their interest, you're a hero of human rights. But if you fight for the interest of European people, then you are a xenophobe or a terrible racist. I want to give you a more visual example for ethnomasochism. Whom of you in this audience knows this image? Everybody has seen it. And we also know the name of him, of this little child who had to die. It's Aylan. We know his name, we know his story, we know his identity. He has an identity, a face, and a name. And the next image will be graphic, maybe skip it fast. You have to click another time. Another time, please. This image, on the contrary, is not very known. Who knows it in this audience? Like that, few of you will know it. But if you ask the population of Oslo and of Norway, nobody will know it. And in 1 year, she will be forgotten. Just like all the other victims of terrorism, she is she's a girl. She died at the attack in Stockholm, and her only mistake seems to be that she has the wrong skin color to be very low in the hierarchy of victims. That's ethnomasochism. That's a craze that is conquered all of our universities, our newspapers, and that is forbidding us to talk about our identity in an open and fearless way, and that is preventing us from taking measures against massive immigration and against Islamization. It's a spiritual, it's a mental problem, and we all are living in this castle of fear and isolation that this ruling ideology has constructed around us. So the question is legitimate. Is Europe doomed, given this dreadful and dangerous development, the undeniable replacement of its population, the growing Islamization, the ethnic vote, nobody speaking out against it, so many people standing against us, we having to be afraid, having to fight for a right to speak in a book club about these issues? I don't think so, because Hölderlin said, where the danger is, also grows the saving power. And today I want to present you one of the saving powers for a European future, and of course I'm talking about generation identity. You see a wall painting of Aylan, yeah? That was done in Germany by leftists. Also, I think nobody will make a wall painting forever, but we need the next slide with a much more flashing picture. You need to click until it comes.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Okay. Another time. Generation identity. Who are we? I will describe you what the essence of generation identity with story, with a short glimpse of our past. It's October 20th, 2012 in Poitiers, a small but history-charged town near Nantes. And it's already quite cold for this time of the year, and maybe that's the reason why the young men and women who are gathering at a parking lot already are wearing jackets and scarves. They're speaking hastily and low, they're exchanging numbers, they're assigning tasks, and you see a megaphone flashing under a jacket. Next to them is a building site where a mosque shall be built in Poitiers. Only a few minutes are left, and you can feel the palpable nervosity in the air just a few minutes before the action starts. And some of them gives the command, "Allons, let's go." Those young men and women were activists of generation identity, and on this day, in 2012, they were occupying the building site for a mosque in Poitiers, because they want to stop this rampant Islamization in France of Saudi-financed mosques that are being built in their own country. And this occupation took place on the exact day of the Battle of Poitiers, 1,280 years later. And by that they showed their long memory, that they're part of this generation-spanning we, and together with a viral video released just a few minutes afterwards, they also showed France and the whole of Europe that they will not stand by silently and watch as their country becomes a victim of terrorism, of Islamic terrorism, as they are being replaced in their own country. And with this action, they said it was like a bonfire, like a signal fire, like in the scene of Lord of the Rings, where you can see those fires flashing from one mountaintop to another. And I remember very well sitting in a cafe in Vienna, watching these scenes, these videos, and these actions together with my friends. We had like a book club, a new right book club at a university in Vienna. We saw, okay, that's it. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to establish as well in Austria. We went to France, we talked with them, we saw that they were representing also our ideas. And then, soon afterwards, an occupation of a building of the European Union in Vienna followed. Afterwards, followed by the occupation of the Brandenburg Gate in Germany. And now we are a movement that spreads across whole of Western Europe, primarily in France, in Germany, in Italy, but also in the Czech Republic. There are identitarians in Slovenia, in Spain, and in the Netherlands, and hopefully soon also in Norway and in Scandinavia. I think you definitely need also a chapter there. And we are on the best way to becoming a patriotic NGO, a bit like a patriotic Greenpeace or a yellow piece if you consider the color of a lander. We have hundreds of activists all across the continent. We're completely funded by donations, by crowdfunding, and we're getting more and more professional. But if you ask me where the movement, Identitäre movement, was founded, I rightfully answer it was founded on the rooftops of Europe. And before we come to more actions, I will present you more of our ways. I need to explain you a bit about the basics of our movement and what makes it so unique and so successful. Because we have a new idea, a new approach to ideas, and we have a new way to do things, a new style. Please, two slides.
Nous sommes la génération identitaire.
Nous sommes la génération de ceux qui meurent pour un regard de travers, une cigarette refusée ou un style qui dérange.
Nous sommes la génération de la fracture ethnique, de la faillite totale du vivre ensemble, du métissage imposé.
Nous sommes la génération de la double peine, condamnée à renflouer un système social trop généreux avec les autres pour continuer à l'être avec les nôtres.
Nous sommes la génération victime de celle de mai 68, de celle qui prétendait vouloir nous émanciper du poids des traditions, du savoir, de l'autorité à l'école, mais qui s'est d'abord émancipée de ses propres responsabilités.
Nous avons fermé vos livres d'histoire pour retrouver notre mémoire.
Nous avons cessé de croire que Kader pouvait être notre frère, la planète notre village et l'humanité notre famille.
Nous avons découvert que nous avions des racines, des ancêtres et donc un avenir.
Notre seul héritage, c'est notre terre, notre sang, notre identité. Nous sommes les héritiers de notre destin.
Nous avons éteint la télévision pour descendre à nouveau dans la rue.
Nous avons peint nos slogans sur les murs, scandé la jeunesse au pouvoir dans nos mégaphones, brandi bien haut nos drapeaux frappés du lambda.
Ce lambda, qui ornait le bouclier des glorieux Spartiates, est notre symbole.
Vous ne comprenez pas ce qu'il représente ? Il signifie que nous ne reculerons pas, que nous ne renoncerons pas.
Nous sommes lassés de toutes vos lâchetés. Nous ne refuserons aucune bataille, aucun défi.
Vous êtes les 30 glorieuses, les retraites par répartition, SOS racisme, la diversité, le regroupement familial, la liberté sexuelle et les sacs de riz de Bernard Kouchner.
Nous sommes 25% de chômage, la dette sociale, l'explosion de la société multiculturelle, le racisme anti-blanc, les familles éclatées et un jeune soldat français qui meurt en Afghanistan.
Vous ne nous aurez pas avec un regard condescendant.
des emplois jeunes et une tape sur l'épaule. Pour nous, la vie est un combat.
Ne vous méprenez pas, ceci n'est pas un simple manifeste, c'est une déclaration de guerre.
Nous sommes demain, vous êtes hier.
Nous sommes la génération identitaire.
In fact, what is the new idea behind the movement? We believe in ethno-pluralism. It comes from ethnos, that means people in Greek, and a pluralism, it means a plurality. We want to preserve our ethno-cultural identity. What does it mean, our ethno-cultural identity? That is the whole ensemble of our language, of our tradition, of a culture, of a descent, and this generation spanning we that was talking before. And of course, this is not a complete stable and never changing thing and object. Cultures and people do change, and they can take in new things, but of course you'd have to take in consideration what are the capacities of assimilation, of integration. Nobody thought about that before we stumbled into this experiment of the great replacement where we, all of us, are the laboratory rats. We want to preserve this ethno-cultural identity, but we respect all the identities of all the other peoples. We respect the identity of the Sami population, of the Palestinians, of the Tibetans, and we just also want to preserve our own. So a very simple example, when you love your own children as a parent, you don't hate other children. You also respect them, but you love your own children most, of course. And that's the point that we are defending between real racism, chauvinism, nationalism, and the complete denial of descent of ethnocultural identity and multiculturalism. The third way that they want to tell you doesn't exist. They want to tell you have to decide between rampant real racism and racial supremacy complexes and their ideology of multiculturalism, between their boogeyman of a Nazi and a racist, and between their fate, the fate they have planned for your country. Thank you. And you don't have to decide between these two false alternatives. You can go a third way, a normal way. You can take identitarianism, that is, in fact, the normal status quo in every country that is non-European. Every country is allowed to maintain its identity, to control its border, to secure its national heritage, but only we, when we do it, are being blamed as xenophobes, Nazis and racists, and we want to stop with that. That's in fact our basic idea, and it's a very small consensus. We want to preserve the ethnocultural identity of Europe and of its populations and its people. And around this small consensus, we can gather a variety of ideas and of people. We have more libertarian people here, we have conservative people, we have atheists, we have Christians, we have people who want to save the environment, who are more like hippies, and there are people who are tech guys. So it's a very broad picture of the whole society. We also have young people, old people here. We all gather around this very small consensus that we want to preserve our ethnocultural identity. That is the very basis for our democracy. And in order to do that, we have very basic and clear and simple demands. There are easy answers to also very easy questions. We want to stop the massive non-European Islamic trans and working migration to Europe. We want to close and secure our borders. We want to fight radical Islam in Europe, and we want a remigration of illegals here and a strong dominant culture. We want to be able to take pride in our identity again in Europe and all the European countries. And for these demands, in fact, we also would need to create perspectives in those countries where all the migrants come from. So we also see the bigger picture. We don't only think about Europe and about our countries. We understand that there's a big inequality in the world, and you cannot talk about mass immigration without also talking about globalization. What we in fact want to do is to invert these famous push and pull factors that are creating the mass migration to Europe. We need to stop incentives to come to Europe, like immigration into the welfare system, but we at the same time need to create perspectives at place in their own countries to break and revert this influx, this stream of migrants. And by doing that, we could also invert the demographic tendencies in our countries and prevent the great replacement and Islamization of Europe and the destruction of our democracy by demographics. But many people wanted to do that. And many people talk about that. The difference is that we have a plan to do that. And this plan stems from Alain de Benoit, maybe you can, and who took a word from a leftist scholar named Antonio Gramsci, and that's the term of metapolitics. What does it mean? It means that we understood the power structure of the system we live in. The power comes not from police, the army, the power comes from the ruling ideology that is creating the public opinion via news articles, series, movies, and university lectures and art exhibitions. Those people are creating this, this public opinion that is inciting fear in the heart of all the patriots in this country. And without reconquering this metapolitic public opinion, we will not be able to have political change in this country. The ruling ideology of today is this crazy ethnomasochism that I described. The interdiction of having an own identity and taking pride in your own identity. And the key to politics is metapolitics, and the key to metapolitics itself is activism. We need visible acts of defiance against this ruling ideology, and we need unity. We need visible unity of the silent majority of dissidents. And we have this silent majority already. We don't need to become more. We are more. We are a mass of people, of dissidents. We need to unite those people, and we need to make them aware how many they are. How many are there? In Norway, in a poll from 2015, 2/3 of Norwegians said that they are against further immigration. And where are they today? Why aren't they here? Why aren't they outside on the street protesting? Why are they even voting for those parties who are clearly against further immigration? Why are they voting not against their own interest, but against their own conviction? That's what I call, and what we are calling, an emotional barrier. People have patriotic identitarian viewpoints, but they don't want to be patriots, right-wingers or identitarians. Because the media was, in a way, very successful by demonizing, by destroying the image of everyone who is criticizing massive immigration and Islamization. And we have to restore this image, and what we, in fact, basically have to do, we at the moment are only objects of the public discourse, and we have to become, again, subjects of this public discourse, and this only works by action. And whether you know it or not, you're already taking part in the first identitarian action in Norway. We even made the headlines of the national news, because this event here is a platform where people can gather and people can connect. I'm sure that everybody around here in this room knows each other. And here you can get to know each other. And that's the reason why the radical left is hating these events and these platforms. Because they know then we can break out of our isolated, fragmented state, and we can unite and we can become visual, powerful. Metapolitics is the key to politics. Activism is a unity, and visual acts of defiance are the key to transform metapolitics. And that's what we do as Generation Identity. And as I promised, after this theory part, I will now present you several actions. Maybe you can just click through the slides. You see, one of our most important things is that we show our faces. We don't hide behind masks like our opponents on the left. Every action we do is a public action. Social media, cameras are very important for us. By that we are breaking this emotional barrier, and we show all the people, those dangerous right-wing extremists that you're brave enough to listen today, are in fact just normal people, like your daughter, like your nephew, people like you and me. Another way to break this wall of silence is activism, and we have a huge arsenal of actions. One is the symbolic occupation. This is an action we are very known for. In fact, when I was going through Norway, I was already looking for rooftops that would be nice for a kind of action like this. You see and the occupation of the Burg Theater in Vienna. I will later show the video of this action. And on this slide, you see the occupation of the Brandenburg Gate in Vienna. And during the several next slides, you also see several other occupation of a Green Party Central in Austria, of a building that should become an asylum center in France, and of a balcony of a European Union building in Paris. The slogan, by the way, of this banner is, I think, is very good, and also showcases the identitarian spirit. It says, immigration kills Africa, and immigration is killing Europe. Because, as we know, this massive migration is also bad for the countries that people come from. What's the idea of these actions? These actions are actions that you cannot ignore. People cannot ignore you when you're sitting on the rooftop of the party headquarters. And by that we are reconquering the public space, we are reconquering the debate that people are denying us. Because all our demands, in fact, boil down to one simple and easy demand. We want a free, open, public debate about these issues. Without this free and open public debate, there cannot be a law against immigration. If there's not a free and public debate, where you have no fear to come to this event, no fear to speak here, no fear to speak your mind in your private circles about Islamization, then there will be no way to confront Islamization in a political way. So that's the basic understanding, and that's also a message of hope, because every one of you can work in his private environment or in movement to deconstruct this this prison of fear and this metapolitical dominance of the left. And now I'll show you a video of identitarianism in action. It's the occupation of the book theater in Vienna.
After a protest against the refugees' welcome play at our university, the leftist president of the National Assembly, Mrs. Burris, invited them into the famous book theater to repeat it under her honorary protection. A few days later, the 21-year-old student was brutally raped by 3 refugees in Vienna.
You hypocrites! Where are your tears and plays for the victims of terrorism and immigration? We will show the whole world what you are and what the Austrian youth thinks of you. We don't care about your honorary protection when you can protect our own women and children. You are hypocrites and your time is over.
Identitäre Bewegung Österreich, lasst uns nicht mehr gefallen. Wir zeigen den Multikultus Macht. Wir sagen Ihnen, die besten Jahre sind vorbei.
This kind of actions, we given a very visual example of defiance for the whole population in Austria and Europe. And those actions are like bonfires. After every action, people are writing us, we get donations, people want to take part. And also, we are putting in our enemies in a permanent stage of anxiety. They never know when we show up, where we show up. In fact, as you see, there are not much boundaries for our activism. Very important for us is that all our actions are non-violent. We completely adhere and stick to the idea of non-violent resistance, and in fact, we learn a lot from people like Gandhi, but also from Gene Sharp, from the civil resistance movement, by non-violent activism, by defiant and also willingness to sacrifice. We want to wake up the silent majority and give people the braveness to, at least in the private circles, also stand up for a movement and stand up against massive immigration and multiculturalism. The last recent symbolic occupation took place in Vienna. It was at the rooftop of the Turkish embassy. There's now a big investigation how we got up there, and you see it's a banner with a silhouette of Prince Eugene, a commander who freed the Balkans from the Ottomans, with the slogan against Erdogan and the Turkish nationalism that we see on the rise today in Austria and in Germany every time. So we are able to respond with an action to everything that's happening in our countries. Another form of activism that we have cultivated in our movement are aesthetic interventions. And there we can showcase our creativity. For example, you see here the statue of Maria Theresia, famous empress in Austria, and she was wheeled by identitarian activists as an action to call for a banning of the burqa in Austria. And what can I say? The burqa is now banned in Austria. So you see the effectiveness of activism. Of course, it's not only because we did this, but with these actions, we are changing the meta-political landscape. We are shifting the overtone window, and we are creating a different atmosphere where people dare more and more to speak out about these issues. And my conviction is, if there's an open and free debate about these issues, then I think the public and also the politicians will gradually come to the senses. Another action that we did in Vienna and other countries several times was a staged ISIS execution in the streets of Vienna. Of course, that's very harsh. It's a provocation. I understand that. But I think much more extreme is, than this action is the reality. In fact, we did this action in, I think, 2014, before this massive rise of terror attacks, warning of this coming future. And everybody was saying, yeah, we are exaggerating. And now it's really taking place in Europe. People are really killed and slaughtered in Europe. And what we need to do is we need to be visiting from the future and shock people into awareness that people do something now, when it's still possible, that we will not face this grim reality we often have to depict in our actions. Besides from that, we also make street theater and humorous actions, like this one where we joined a demonstration against banning the burqa with very clear messages. I don't know why they really didn't like us and weren't cheering about us joining them. What I particularly like about this action was the inflatable palm tree that we took with us. And with this kind of action, with this kind of humor, it's also very hard for them to demonize us. Here you see several more aesthetic interventions, whether we dress up as DDR officers, the German Democratic Republic, the socialist dictatorship, and giving a prize for censorship to a leftist German institution, or we just re-erect a mountain cross that has been cut down by radical extremists. Or dress up as Lego Man with the slogan, Merkel, don't play with our future. Identitarians are always good for a surprise. People never know what we do next. And we have really a bundle of creative activists who are also taking a lot of joy in doing that. And I can assure every one of you, if you're full of anger and frustration every time you look into the newspaper or you scroll through your browser and you get more and more angry, when you start doing activism, then in a way you will get more content because you know that you're doing something against it, and you know that what you're doing against this is also effective. We also do a lot of demonstrations across Europe every year, and once a year we have a summer university. I will show you a small clip that will show you the force of generational identity. How do I play it?
I just can't.
At this university, every summer they're meeting activists from all across Europe, and this for me is the real Europe, because our great-grandfathers have fought each other and shot each other in the battlefields of Europe, and now we are together, working together on a common cause. So we are not xenophobes or nationalists. We are real Europeans, more than the European Union, because it's very easy to say you're European, but in fact you have no tradition and no identity at all. And we have those national identity and tradition, but we also understand that we're part of a bigger picture, part of Europe, and we are part of the world, and we want to create a more just, a more secure world, a world full of identities, a world with 1,000 identities, where people also don't have to migrate when they want to have a secure and wealthy life. I think if you would fix the reason for mass migration at place, and only those people who really love to come to Europe, because they like European culture, would come to Europe, we would have no problem at all with integration or Islamization. The main problem is these massive flows of mass immigration that are also bad from the country that people are coming from. But we can talk about this for hours. The only way to change it is, as I said before, as I've showcased now, activism. And with this activism that's always non-violent, where we show our faces, it's sometimes even humorous and creative, it's very hard for opponents to demonize us. We leave them baffled and in fact desperate. They cannot do anything against it. And when they start with demonizing and with repression, it backfires. So for example, after the action on the Brandenburg Gate, the headline was as follows: right-wing extremists desacralized the Brandenburg Gate with a message of hate. On the span it was written, secure borders, secure future. Who the hell is convinced by a headline like this? No one who wasn't convinced before. But a lot of people are being pushed away by this propaganda. So we cannot force them to tell the truth. But by sticking to a non-violent way of activism, we can force them to lie in a more and more absurd way. And that's the effect generation identity has. And whether the Antifa stormtroops, who are in a way working together with this soft totalitarianism of political correctness, whether they burn my parents' car like they did a year before, or they nearly kill a participant of a demonstration in Vienna, they cannot stop the rise of a movement, and they cannot stop the rise of generation identity. Why? We have no real power, we have no money, we have no funds from the state, we have no structure, no infrastructure. In fact, I have to admit it, are just a bunch of amateurs, of students, most of them in their early 20s. But we have something that they don't have. We have a vision, we have the defiance to face a seemingly invincible opponent. Just like we did a few weeks before in the Mediterranean Sea in front of the port of Catania, with a small boat that's here facing a huge NGO ship that is involved in this human trafficking that's taking place here. So we already now have a navy, an entire navy, although it's very small, I have to admit that. We need those visible and visual acts of defiance, and you also need them in Norway, because we need to scandalize this so-called normality that today consists of children corpses on the street. If you don't do that, it will get worse and worse and worse. You know the example of the frog in the pot with boiling water. Today, in this race against time, where the ethnic vote and the parallel society is getting stronger from election to election, silence for us equals doom. Silence for us equals death. And this is my great fear. My great fear is that at one point there's no point of return. And even if all the Norwegians vote for a party to stop immigration, they don't have the majority anymore. And we have this scenario that Ulbeck described. Demography kills democracy. But I also have a big hope. And this hope is the silent majority of Norwegians that exist. This hope are you, people who sit here, who took the first step to get active, to get informed. Because this silent majority is like an avalanche just waiting to be activated and to crush these walls of fear. But also, like the snow in the hot Arabic sun, it's melting away. And we, as we're sitting here, are the last generation that is able to stop the great replacement, to stop the Islamization of Europe, and to save our identities. To do that, we need to get active, and especially my generation. My generation has spent the whole youth saving princesses in 8-bit castles in Super Mario. But when our real women, our sisters, our mothers, our daughters are being raped on the streets, we cannot lay back and stay at home. We need to get active, we need to get on the street, and we need to do it in an intelligent and peaceful way, like Generation Identity does. And in the struggle for a free and open debate, the real enemy and the real opponent is yourself. And that's why I want to end this presentation with a quote of Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher. He said, "The worst enemy you can meet will always be yourself. You lie in wait for yourself in caverns and forests. Lonely one, you're going to wait to yourself." We, every one of us, have to overcome this inner fear, to become active with visual acts of defiance when we want to survive this century as a nation, as an identity, and as Europe. And if we do that, and if you do that, on this ship, this could be you. Thank you very much for your attention.